I told him I wasn't ready for anything serious. That's how I opened our third conversation. Just dropped it casually, like I was warning him not to catch feelings, when really, I was the one already tangled up in emotions I didn't understand. I'm still healing from my divorce, I said, and added a soft, sad smile for effect. So if that's a red flag or whatever, I totally get it. He didn't even flinch. Micah looked at me with this warm, steady gaze, like I wasn't damaged goods, like I was someone worth waiting for. It's not a red flag, he said. It's human. I can take things slow if that's what you need. And the worst part, he meant it. I'm Emma, I'm 32, and this story isn't about a love triangle. It's about a lie, one I wrapped in just enough truth to make it believable. One I used to protect myself, but ended up weaponizing. Because when I said I was still healing, what I didn't say was that my ex-husband was still living in my house. Not across town, not even in a separate apartment, in my guest room. Well, we called it the guest room, but the bed still had his old weighted blanket on it. His favorite hoodie hung on the doorknob. His work boots were still lined up in the hallway like nothing had changed. And sometimes, when I woke up from a nightmare or drank too much wine, he'd end up in my bed, just like he used to. We told ourselves we were doing the mature thing, keeping it civil, saving money until the lease ended, giving each other space to transition out of marriage like grown adults. But the truth was, we weren't really over. Not emotionally, not physically, not at all. Levi, that's my ex, still thought this was a pause, a reset. He still believed we'd eventually find our way back to each other, that I just needed time. And I let him believe it. I didn't have the heart, or maybe the guts, to tell him I'd already stepped out emotionally, that I was starting to feel something new for someone else, that I'd met Micah. Micah, with his stupidly charming dog dad energy and his habit of picking up garbage in the park while we walked our dogs. Micah, who remembered my coffee order after one conversation and brought it to me the second time we bumped into each other. Micah, who asked me questions and actually waited for the answers. It felt safe to let him like me, easier than admitting that I had no idea what the hell I was doing. He didn't rush anything. When I hesitated to hold his hand the first time, he didn't push. When I deflected questions about my ex, he respected the boundaries I hadn't earned. And I smiled, flirted softly, and made it clear I was open to seeing where things go eventually. It wasn't a lie exactly. Just edited. I convinced myself it was okay. That Levi and I were basically done, that our papers were filed even if we hadn't signed, that he was sleeping in another room even if we occasionally slipped, that I wasn't cheating on anyone because technically there was no one to cheat on. But deep down, I knew better. Because every night, I made sure Micah and Levi were never in the same breath. I split my life in two, morning coffee and passive-aggressive, roommate banter with Levi, then long dog walks and warm smiles with Micah in the evening. I didn't mention one to the other. I kept everything meticulously separate. It was survival, it was cowardice. It was working. Until one day, Micah asked if I wanted to go hiking with him upstate, just the two of us overnight, a weekend getaway. My heart skipped, and then plummeted. Because there was no way I could say yes without coming clean, not unless I wanted to fabricate an entire second lie. I tried to buy time. That sounds amazing, I said, but I'm not quite there yet emotionally. He nodded, it's okay, just let me know when you are. That night, I came home to Levi frying eggs in my kitchen like he'd never moved out, like we hadn't broken our vows under a judge's signature. He kissed my cheek before I could step away, and I didn't correct him. We sat and ate together. He asked me if I wanted to rewatch The Office. I said yes. That's how I kept justifying it, nostalgia, familiarity, routine. But the line between comfort and complicity was blurring fast. Micah deserved the truth. Levi deserved clarity. And I deserved the wreck I was about to create. We're just roommates now, I told Micah one warm Thursday evening as we sat on the porch steps, Molly curled between us like some fluffy barrier to reality. It was the first time I'd said it out loud, the ex part of Levi. I waited to see if Micah would flinch, ask a follow-up, pull away. He didn't. Ah, he said gently, offering me the wine glass we were trading back and forth. So, roommate as in neutral territory, or roommate as in still figuring it out? I blinked. Neutral, I lied quickly. It's purely logistical. The lease ends in December, that's all. He gave a soft, skeptical smile. I've heard worse setups, honestly. And just like that, the danger passed. Or so I thought. Because Micah, sweet, patient Micah, didn't press. He accepted what I said at face value, like I was some wounded bird doing her best. And maybe I was, but I was also something else. I was selfish. I liked having both. Levi and I had history, shared rhythms, the same sense of humor. The same ugly toaster we'd picked out at a yard sale 6 years ago. He knew how I liked my eggs. He could tell when I was faking sleep to avoid hard conversations. He knew how to make me feel protected when I didn't even realize I needed it. And then there was Micah, all potential and possibility. Every smile from him felt like a promise. Every time he touched my elbow or brushed my hair off my face, I felt seen in a way I hadn't for years. He listened. He didn't finish my sentences, he waited for me to finish them myself. One man made me feel safe. The other made me feel new. And instead of choosing, I kept both lives running on parallel tracks, pretending they'd never collide. But cracks were starting to show. Levi had started acting possessive in subtle ways, leaving his shoes in the hallway so they'd be seen first, keeping his toothbrush out even though he used mine half the time, making passive comments when I came home in makeup and heels like, "Big day at the farmer's market, huh?" I deflected, I laughed, I acted like I didn't notice. But one night he broke script. We were watching a movie on the couch, not even touching, when he suddenly hit pause and turned to me. "Are you seeing someone?" The words hung in the air like fog. I stared at him, heart hammering. "What?" "Don't bullshit me, Em. I see the way you've been acting. The smiling at your phone, the disappearing on weekends. You think I don't notice?" I opened my mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. "I don't think I owe you details, Levi. We're not together anymore." "You live with me." "You live with me," I snapped, "in my apartment on my lease." That stung. I saw it hit him, the humiliation flashing behind his eyes. He looked away. "So you are," he muttered, "seeing someone." I didn't answer. Which of course was an answer. He got up, walked to the fridge, and pulled out a beer. "Is he the reason you gave up on us?" And there it was, the truth neither of us had wanted to say out loud. I could have said no, I could have said we were already done. But instead, I said nothing, and in doing so, said everything. The silence between us grew legs and crawled into every room of the house after that. Levi didn't touch me again. He didn't sit next to me on the couch. He started going out more, staying at his brother, sleeping elsewhere. And for a minute, I thought maybe that solved everything. Micah and I got closer. We went for longer walks, longer dinners. We kissed on the sidewalk like teenagers. He started asking questions about what I wanted not just for us, but for myself. And then he asked me to meet his sister. "You'll love her," he said, twirling a strand of my hair while we lay on his couch. "She's basically me, but better at sarcasm." I smiled. I'd love that. And I meant it. Until I realized I couldn't bring her back to my apartment. Because Levi still lived there. Because his hoodie was still on the chair in the entryway. His framed photo was still in the hallway. His guitar was still by the window. His presence hadn't faded, it had just gone quiet. How would I explain that? How could I possibly walk Micah through my front door and pretend that this space was mine and mine alone? The idea made me sick with panic, so I stalled. "I think it's a little soon to meet family," I said casually the next morning over bagels. He didn't argue, but I saw something flicker in his expression. He didn't say it, but I could feel it. "Why is everything always soon with you?" I went home that afternoon and opened the door to find Levi standing at the stove, flipping grilled cheese on the pan like nothing had changed. He turned, smirked, and said, "Your mystery man buy you that scarf." I looked down at the striped wool around my neck. Micah had given it to me just days ago. "Don't," I said flatly. Levi shrugged, just asking. "I don't owe you an explanation." "No," he said, "you owe me closure." That night, I realized I couldn't keep doing this. Couldn't keep splitting myself in half for two men who deserved a whole person. So I made a decision. I'd tell Micah the truth. About everything. About Levi, about the apartment, about how I'd blurred every line and convinced myself that honesty could wait. I practiced the conversation in my head over and over. But I never got to deliver it. Because life, or karma, beat me to it. Micah didn't yell. He didn't throw anything or storm out or send a passive-aggressive text. He just stood in the middle of my kitchen, staring at Levi's hoodie on the back of a dining chair, and said, "So, this is your roommate." I felt the blood drain from my face. He hadn't warned me he was coming. He texted, I was in the neighborhood, thought I'd drop off Molly's new leash. That was it. Casual, normal, the kind of thing couples do when they're building something real. And I'd said, sure, swing by. Like an idiot. Like Levi wasn't home. Like his goddamn scent didn't still linger in the hallway. Micah, I started, stepping between him and the guest room door. But it was too late. Levi had already come out, barefoot, shirtless, rubbing sleep from his eyes. I watched the exact moment the pieces clicked for Micah. The overnight bag still near the couch. The sound of a second toothbrush falling into the sink moments earlier. The damn familiarity in the way Levi said, "Oh, this the dog park guy." Micah didn't answer. He didn't have to. I watched his jaw clench as he handed me the leash, didn't even meet my eyes. "You should have just told me," he said softly. "I asked you, I gave you space." "Micah, please," I whispered, reaching for him, but he pulled back like I burned. "I'm not mad you have a past," he said. "I'm mad you invited me into a present I was never part of." And then, the line that gutted me. "You deserve someone who'll wait for you, Emma, but I deserve someone who shows up." He left before I could say another word. And Levi? Levi had the nerve to smirk. "Wow," he said, "real stable guy you picked there." "You don't get to speak right now," I snapped. He raised an eyebrow. "I'm not the one two-timing people in my own apartment." That was rich, coming from the man who once slept with his coworker while I was out of town for my sister's wedding. But this wasn't about moral math. This was about now. About the mess I'd built with my own hands and then watched collapse in real time. "I told you," I hissed, "we're over." "Really?" Levi said, "because sure as hell hasn't felt like it." He walked into the living room, grabbed his hoodie, and pulled it on like a suit of armor. "You let me stay, you let me touch you, you let me hope, Emma." I sank onto the couch, covering my face with both hands. "I didn't mean to." "Yeah, you never mean to, that's your whole thing." He said it quietly, no venom, just disappointment, which somehow hurt more. By the next morning, Levi was gone, a few boxes missing, the guitar, his boots. A sticky note on the fridge, "I won't be back, no hard feelings." But of course there were. Because I hadn't just lost one man, I'd lost two. And worse, I'd lost the version of myself I was trying to become. The one who deserved something real. The following week, I barely left my apartment. Molly lay curled at the foot of my bed like she knew her humans had failed spectacularly. The leash Micah gave me sat unused by the door. Every sound outside made me flinch, hopping maybe he'd show up again. That he'd be angry, sure, but also still in love. But he didn't. Not after one day. Not after 1 week. The thing about slow burns is that they take time to build, but once extinguished, they're almost impossible to reignite. And I'd drenched hours in lies. Eventually, I texted him, not an essay, just, "I'm sorry, you were right, I wasn't ready, but I wanted to be." No response. I told myself he just needed space. That maybe, after some time, we could circle back. But a few days later, I saw his story, a photo of him at a bar with friends, laughing. A woman beside him, profile turned, not tagged, just present. And just like that, I knew he'd moved on. Meanwhile, I was still packing my kitchen in the hoodie Levi forgot, still rereading old messages from Micah, still trying to rewrite a history I had already burned. It took a while to understand what I'd done. Not just to them, to me. Because I hadn't just sabotaged a relationship, I'd built a home on a foundation of denial. I thought I was being careful, smart, keeping options open, protecting my heart. But what I was really doing? Stalling, Avoiding. Manipulating, not with cruelty, but with indecision. And it was just as toxic. I used Levi as a safety net and Micah as a mirror. I liked who I was around Micah, but I didn't become that person. I just tried her on, like a jacket I wasn't sure I could afford. Turns out I couldn't. Not yet. But I wanted to. For real this time. 3 months later, I saw her. The girl after me. She was standing outside the same coffee shop where Micah and I used to meet up on Saturday mornings. I hadn't gone there in weeks. Months, maybe. I didn't even mean to go that day. I just happened to be in the area after a miserable therapy session, craving something familiar. And there she was. She was laughing at something Micah had said, that same soft-shouldered tilt I remembered so well. He was standing next to her, holding 2 coffees and looking at her like she'd hung the moon. She was shorter than me, prettier in that low-maintenance, jeans-and-a sweater kind of way. Her hair was in a loose braid, and she wore no makeup, just this radiant face that said she didn't need it anyway. She looked light, effortless. And the worst part, he looked happier with her than he ever did with me. No tension in his jaw, no uncertainty in his eyes. Just that relaxed, open version of himself that I'd only caught glimpses of when I wasn't dodging my own guilt or lying to his face. I didn't say anything, didn't go over, didn't cause a scene. I just stood there, across the street, heart pounding, watching him be exactly who I knew he could be, with someone who wasn't still tethered to their past. I turned and walked away before they saw me. And cried the whole way home. That night, I sat on my kitchen floor in my pajamas, scrolling through our old messages. I found the one where he told me, "You're not broken, Emma, you're rebuilding, I can wait." He had waited. And I had wasted it. My phone lit up Levi, of all people. "Hey, I got mail for you again. Want me to drop it by?" I stared at the text for a long time. I hadn't seen him since the day he moved out. We exchanged maybe 3 texts, all short, logistical. He'd been true to his word, no dramatics, no returning to old patterns. He'd done what I hadn't, actually let go. I typed, "Sure, tomorrow morning okay." He wrote back, "Yup." When he showed up, he looked different. Cleaner, sharper, the beard was gone, his clothes fit better. His shoulders weren't hunched anymore. He looked like a man who'd found closure, like someone who'd finally stopped waiting for me. "Here," he said, handing me a small stack of envelopes. "That should be the last of it." "Thanks." He didn't leave right away. Just stood there in the doorway, eyes scanning the apartment. "You changed the curtains," he said. I nodded, felt like it was time. He nodded too, then hesitated. "Micah still around?" The question hit like a slap, even though it came out soft. "No," I said, "he's not part of my life anymore." Levi didn't look smug, didn't say "I told you so," he just looked sad. "I hope you're okay," he said finally. "I know I wasn't always what you needed, but I still hope you find it, whatever it is." "Me too," I whispered, "for both of us." He smiled faintly, then left. And just like that, every door I'd ever refused to close finally did. The silence afterward was deafening. No more shared mornings. No more half-truths. Just me. I started journaling again, actually going to therapy. I deleted the dating apps, stopped casually texting people who only complicated my healing. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't dramatic. It was just real. Boring, lonely, gut-wrenching reality. And then one day, Micah's name popped up. Not on my phone, on my email. A notification from a newsletter we'd both signed up for months ago, something about an event at the Botanical Gardens. And right there, under the event title, it said, "Presented by Micah Tours & Co." I stared at it for a long time. I didn't click, didn't message him, didn't drive down there in some dramatic rom-com move. I just sat there and smiled. Because for the first time in months, I didn't feel envy. I felt proud. He'd moved on, not just from me but toward himself. He'd kept growing, even when I'd made things so heavy he could have drowned. And somehow, watching him bloom reminded me I could too. Maybe not today. But soon. Everyone thinks closure is a conversation. That it happens over coffee, or wine, or maybe a final walk in the park, where where two exes hold hands one last time and agree that they were beautiful while they lasted. But now it's time to say goodbye. Bullshit. Closure is what happens after the conversation you never get. It's waking up one day and realizing you haven't checked his Instagram in a week. It's folding laundry and forgetting which hoodie used to be his. It's running into someone who reminds you of him and not feeling like you've been kicked in the chest. It's silence, finally, that doesn't scream. I didn't get closure from Micah. I didn't get a final phone call or a last kiss or even a cold, clean break. I got nothing. And from that nothing, I built everything. The first step was reclaiming my home. It sounds small, but it was. Every drawer, every shelf, every corner of that apartment had Levi in it. I hadn't noticed it while I was clinging to the fantasy that he was just temporarily here. But once he was really gone, it was like the walls started whispering. The couch where he used to fall asleep during playoff games. The bathroom where his cologne lingered long after he'd moved out. The bookshelf filled with novels I never liked, but kept anyway because he loved them. I donated half of it. Repainted the living room, got rid of the ugly toaster. I even sold the bed. Micah had never spent the night in it, but he had kissed me beside it, laid me down on it once before I panicked and pulled away, babbling something about taking it slow. It wasn't the bed's fault, but I couldn't breathe in that room anymore. So I replaced it. Got a new mattress. New sheets. New rules. No more ghosts. I started doing things alone on purpose. Went to the farmer's market, without Levi trailing behind with his eco bags and hot takes about overpriced tomatoes. Went to the dog park without Micah showing up with treats and compliments. Just me and Molly. At first, I hated it. People say they want solitude. What they really want is the option to be alone, not the default. But slowly, it started to feel less like punishment, more like permission. To think. To be. I went back to yoga, got drinks with friends I'd been neglecting for months. And somewhere along the way, I stopped introducing myself with disclaimers. No more "I'm just out of something," or "I'm still figuring stuff out." Now I just said, "Hi, I'm Emma." And that felt like enough. One Sunday afternoon, I ran into Micah's sister, Claire. We'd never officially met, but I recognized her from his stories. And from the Instagram he hadn't blocked me on, just stopped using for a while after the fallout. She was standing in line at the bakery, scrolling through her phone. I almost turned and walked away, but she looked up, caught my eye, and smiled. "Emma Wright," she said. I nodded. "Hey. Didn't mean to ambush you," she said quickly, then softened. "Just figured I should say hi. He mentioned you, a lot." "Oh," I said, unsure what else to offer. "Well, I'm sure not recently." She shrugged. "He doesn't talk about the past like that, but he talks about what he learned. That counts." That landed like a feather, not a blow. Strange. I smiled. "He seems happy. I saw him a while ago, with someone." Claire nodded. "Yeah, her name's Zoe. She's really lovely. But don't worry, he still spoils the dog more than anyone else." We both laughed. It felt weirdly good. Like we weren't characters in a tragedy anymore. Just two people who had survived the same person in different ways. "Anyway," she said as she picked up her coffee, "he never hated you, you know that, right?" I looked at her. "He shouldn't have had to." She gave a quiet nod. "We all have our messy chapters." Then she left. And I stood there for a long time, holding a muffin I didn't want, staring out the window, realizing that I didn't need Micah's forgiveness anymore. Because I had already forgiven myself. I thought the story was over. Thought I'd had my reckoning, my closure, my slow burn emotional evolution, all the cliches you tell yourself after heartbreak, wrapped in just enough self-awareness to pass as growth. But the universe, apparently, wasn't done with me yet. It started with a phone call I almost didn't answer. Unknown number. Sunday morning. I was elbow-deep in laundry, wearing an avocado face mask and listening to a breakup podcast I didn't even like anymore. Something told me to pick up. "Emma Lawson," a voice said, male, polite, vaguely familiar. "Yes." "This is Jonah Kent. I work with Micah. I got your number from our office list. I hope that's okay. I wanted to talk to you about something I probably should have told you a long time ago. I froze. Jonah, the guy Micah once told me was like a brother. The one who helped him start his nonprofit. I remembered his name. I remembered everything back then because I used to replay our conversations like scriptures. I'm listening, I said cautiously. He took a breath. I wasn't going to say anything. I figured it wasn't my place, but I've been thinking about it for months and, you deserve to know, Micah wasn't just hurt when things ended between you two, he was angry. Yeah, I said flatly, that was pretty clear. No, I mean, he was angry because you reminded him of someone. That gave me pause. What do you mean? His ex-fiancée, Jonah said. I blinked. He never told me he was engaged. He almost never tells anyone, Jonah said. They were together for 5 years. He proposed. She said yes. A month later, he found out she'd been cheating with her ex-husband. She'd been lying about it the whole time, even let him believe the guy was just helping with the kids. Sound familiar? My stomach dropped. The dog park, the patience, the way he never pushed. Of course he didn't push, he'd been here before. I'm not saying that excuses anything, Jonah went on. Just, it explains why he reacted the way he did, why he couldn't stick around to hear your version. I swallowed hard. Why are you telling me this now? Because I saw him yesterday, with his girlfriend, and he looked happy, but not in the way you think. More like resigned, like he's trying to build something on top of rubble and pretend it's a foundation. I didn't know what to say. You should know, Jonah said gently, he never blocked your number. He just couldn't bring himself to use it. Then he hung up. And I stood in my kitchen, holding the phone like it was radioactive. I didn't text Micah. Didn't call. Didn't go to his office or drive by his place or accidentally show up at the farmer's market. But I did open a blank email. Just a draft. And I wrote, I never knew about her, but now I understand, and I'm sorry for echoing a pain I didn't know existed. I lied to you, yes, but not to manipulate you. I lied because I was ashamed, because I hadn't figured out how to close one door before opening another. You didn't deserve that. You deserved someone brave enough to tell the truth. And I hope, wherever you are, with whoever you're with, you're building something that feels like truth. Even if it's not with me. I didn't send it. But I didn't delete it either. Just saved it to drafts and let it sit there. A piece of closure I gave myself, finally, not because I expected forgiveness, but because I knew I had grown into someone who could speak honestly. 3 weeks later, Micah liked one of my photos. It was nothing remarkable, just Molly sleeping on my new couch, paws in the air like a little dork. The caption was dumb. This one pays no rent but insists on prime seating. He hadn't liked anything in 6 months. I stared at the notification for a long time. Then liked one of his photos back. Nothing else happened. And that in itself was perfect. Because this time, I didn't need a response to feel seen. There wasn't a moment where everything magically clicked into place. No epiphany over coffee. No sudden rush of peace under a pink sunset. Healing didn't come in a neat bow. It came in fragments. It came the day I saw Micah across the street, walking his dog, not ours, not Molly. Just his, the one he'd adopted with his new girlfriend. He didn't see me. I didn't wave. But I smiled. Because for once, my chest didn't cave in. My lungs didn't collapse. My heart didn't twist into guilt. I just thought, he looks good. And then I kept walking. I threw away the draft email eventually. Not because I regretted writing it. I didn't. It was probably the most honest thing I'd put into the world in a year. But it wasn't for him. It had always been for me. I'd spent so long living in borrowed spaces, emotionally, physically, that I forgot what it meant to truly inhabit my life. To choose things just for me, not for who I might need to explain them to. That changed slowly. I bought a new bed frame, not the one that looked adult like Levi had wanted, not the one that Micah once complimented in a catalog, just a soft, plush, oatmeal-colored headboard I fell in love with at a random warehouse sale. I got rid of all the wine glasses, too many memories. Replaced them with mismatched mugs. I stopped asking people, what they thought I should be doing with my time. Started asking myself what I wanted to do with it. Turns out I like gardening, even though I used to say I had a black thumb. I like early mornings and rain-scented candles and finally, eating breakfast alone without scrolling for validation. The best part, I stopped telling people I was healing from my divorce. Because I'm not anymore. I healed. Not all at once, not completely, but enough. Enough to know I don't need a man in my guest room to feel safe. Enough to know I don't need a man at the dog park to feel wanted. Enough to stop needing a lie to justify my loneliness. And maybe one day I'll love someone again and do it right. No secrets. No half-truths dressed up as timing. Just one whole heart. Offered freely. A few weeks ago, I bumped into Levi. We were both in line at a food truck, of all places. I hadn't seen him since the day he brought the last piece of mail. He looked good, not in the I miss you way, just healthy, clear-eyed. We hugged briefly. "How's Molly?" he asked. "Still a diva." He laughed. I asked how work was. He told me he got promoted. Then he hesitated. "You look different," he said. "I feel different." He nodded slowly, like he knew exactly what I meant. "I'm glad," he said. "So am I." And then he looked me right in the eye and said something I'll never forget. "You know, for what it's worth, I don't think you ruined anything. I think we were just two people who didn't know how to stop reaching for the wrong kind of comfort." It was the gentlest version of the truth I'd ever heard. And it was exactly enough. I still have the photo Micah took of me and Molly the first day we met at the park. I didn't know he'd snapped it until weeks later. I'm sitting on a bench, laughing, one hand tangled in Molly's fur, the other midair like I'm telling a story. He'd sent it to me with the caption, "You look like someone who's about to figure everything out." At the time, I thought it was wishful thinking. Now I think maybe he saw something in me I hadn't yet seen in myself. And maybe that's what real love is. Not permanence, not perfection, but the ability to see someone clearly, even when they're lost, and believe they'll find their way. He was right. I did. Not because of him. Not because of Levi. Because of me. Because I finally stopped hiding in the in-between and walked fully, painfully, beautifully, into the life I'd been avoiding. Subscribe to my Mia's Stories YouTube channel for raw, emotional stories and authentic insights that encourage healing, growth, and understanding. Don't forget to be part of a supportive space where stories inspire and lessons resonate. What do you think about this story? Let us know in the comments. Your opinion truly matters to us, and we're here for you.